name a few of her accomplishments?
No. No, I can't.
What are some of her accomplishments?
I will say that everything that I've seen, I don't think that, no.
I honestly don't think she has any. The 4 years that she was in office as vice president, I didn't hear her speak once until like last week. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, those are people on the street in Atlanta, Georgia, where Kamala Harris will be campaigning today with Megan the Stallion. Is Megan the Stallion a potential cabinet member of a Harris cabinet? Maybe a late entry into the Veep stakes? Who knows? Very interesting. Newsmax cameras on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, asking people if they can name one thing, just anything, one thing Kamala Harris has done. Not a person she's done, just one thing. Was that a low blow? A cheap shot? Maybe. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show. Happy to be here, thrilled to be here. Yes, the Vice President of the United States will be flying to Atlanta, Georgia today, a swing state that has been showing a little waffling, if you will, in the support for Donald Trump. And because Kamala Harris will portray herself as a black woman, she is a woman of color. She is the first Indian American elected to the Senate in the United States. And then when she was elected to the vice president, she became the first black woman to be elected to that office. So she's transracial. That's just pretty easy to understand. And I hope you get it. I hope you understand what it means. But she's going to be campaigning in Georgia. This is her 6th visit this year alone. You don't think the Democrats are concerned about Georgia? Kamala Harris will be there, and the Newsmax cameras just couldn't find anybody with anything really nice to say about her. That's not exactly a surprise to me. Maybe it is to the Kamala Harris campaign. We'll see what happens. We're also keeping our eyes on the Senate hearing that relates to the handling of the investigation into the attempted assassination of Donald Trump and also into what the Secret Service was doing that day. And we've learned a lot that the Secret Service isn't utilizing radio transmissions, and they do have secure lines. They have their own dedicated walkie-talkie channels, encrypted stuff that they can talk to each other. But no, they were texting. And as much as I know we all appreciate texting and the convenience of it, it's a lot faster to hit your walkie-talkie and go, hey, there's a guy on the roof. There's a guy 140 yards away, and he's got a gun. He's got a rifle. Than it is to type out, man on roof, look southeast. No. So we're learning through Ronald Rowe Jr., the acting director of the Secret Service, about some of the failings and some of the things that he would likely question. And you have to wonder how, and maybe we'll learn this. I think we already know. The rumor is that it was a friend of Jill Biden's that got the job. That former director Cheadle was tight with the Biden family, and that would kind of dovetail nicely with everything else we know about the Biden family. That they are, patronage politicians. In Chicago, we recognize this. That's how a lot of things ran in Chicago. We talked earlier today about the weird thing. The Democrats do appear to be locked in on calling Donald Trump and J.D. Vance weird. They love the idea of using weird to isolate or identify their opponents as weird. And I, for one, think it's going to backfire against them, but it is pretty much everywhere.
On the other side, they're just weird.
The 32 ounces of weird.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate.
More extreme, more weird.
You've got these weird men because they're weird.
We're not afraid of weird people.
Well, they also made fun of their hair, said nobody wants to sit with them. Again, this sounds like high school. It really sounds like high school. And I do believe that the Trump campaign should embrace it. let's get the hat out there. MAWA, Make America Weird Again. We did pretty good when we were weird with Donald Trump and Mike Pence. Remember they called Pence weird because he didn't want to have dinner when his wife wasn't with him. If there was a female who wanted to have a dinner meeting with him, Mike Pence said, no, I want to have my wife with me. And they labeled Mike Pence as weird. So they're going to do the weird thing again. The weird thing is coming back. It's going to be in spades. They're going to come after the weird stuff. And I say embrace it. I say put it on shirts. I say fundraise off of it. It's a good idea. And they're also going after J.D. Vance. And the left just doesn't understand J.D. Vance. I know some of the questions about the crazy cat lady, the childless cat lady comments. But again, context matters. If you go a couple minutes before, a couple minutes after, maybe you understand what he's saying. And then there are the 90 emails and text messages that the New York Times got their hands on that a lot of people are saying, hey, this raises some questions here. We need to know about this. But this morning on MSNBC, someone named Molly Jong Fast, I know you know who she is. Molly Jong Fast, who is one of the regular contributors on MSNBC. She multicolored hair person, big glasses, prone to making big hand gestures while she casts aspersions on conservatives. She was a little unhinged this morning. That might be the term we're going to use, is unhinged. Molly Jong Fast saying that J.D. Vance only wants white children in America. This is from I think she's a white woman. She appears to be a white woman. I don't know her ethnic makeup. You know, we only have the pronouns from the left. They don't give us their ethnic makeup. But maybe that's going to be a thing going forward. Maybe they're going to say, my pronouns are she, her, and my nationality or my claimed ethnic makeup is. That might be coming. We might have spotted a trend there. But this is Molly Jong Fast talking about J.D. Vance wanting only white children in America. Well, Jonathan Lemire, their chief White House correspondent there, I think he's from Politico as well, sitting there, and he doesn't correct her when she says this.
The stats are there. More and more Americans choosing not to have kids, which again emphasizes why J.D. Vance's comments about childless Americans, childless cat ladies, could be so politically damaging.
Well, so what's interesting is this natalism that comes from an authoritarian playbook, right? That there need to be more white children, right? That's the idea that there's, this is about great replacement theory, racism, right? This is what this is. So don't misunderstand it for him wanting more children. He wants a certain kind of, racist thing.
The stats are there.
So Molly Jong Fast makes the assumption, even though it was never mentioned, race was never mentioned in any of the comments made by J.D. Vance. There was never one moment that he mentioned the race of the children, that he was encouraging Americans to have children. He was encouraging Americans to try and have families. Because we know good things happen in a country when families are at the center of it. And the left has been at the center of trying to destroy the nuclear family. It used to be on the front page of the Black Lives Matter webpage, and they took it off. When people went, hold on a second, you want the destruction of the nuclear family? And we've seen what happens when there aren't mothers and fathers together raising kids. And you can tell me fathers are involved in the lives or mothers are involved in the lives, but we all know, and there are statistics to show it's better when mother and father are in the same house in the lives of those kids. It's just better. So J.D. Vance talking about people having kids and raising families, it's not anywhere focused on race. And what's interesting here, and John Lemire at filling in for Meek and Joe this week, because apparently they're somewhere. And Molly Jong Fast was incorrect in her assumptions, her declarations, but Vance is the father of 3 not one, not two, but three biracial children. That's right. J.D. Vance married an Indian American woman, and he has three children, biracial children. But never mind the facts getting in the way of your attempts to smear a candidate. Never mind that. That would be a mistake if you dared to bring up the actual facts here. J.D. Vance married an Indian American woman, and he has biracial children. I wonder if we'll get a retraction or an apology from MSNBC or Molly Jong Fast. I doubt it. They're too focused on weird. They're too focused on labeling you weird and then telling you, obviously, that you're not going to be allowed to sit at the table of power anywhere in the world. We will see. We will see. I'm looking at some of the poll numbers because the poll numbers, now that Kamala Harris has been the candidate for a while, the poll numbers are still staying pretty strong for Kamala in the mainstream media polling. But I also watch something known as the Poly Market, which is a place where you can go and say, I would bet on this candidate to win. And in the Poly Market polling, Donald Trump is still a 59% to Kamala Harris's 39% favorite. It's not as scientific as calling people and asking them questions, but it does measure actual money betting on it. So there may be even greater credibility because you tell people put your money where your mouth is. And then there is the predicted marketplace, which has Donald Trump at 53 versus Kamala's 49 and Robert Kennedy's 2. And I have to wonder if Kennedy will be the deciding factor, because the Kamala Harris campaign is going to go after a certain voter. And that certain voter is a voter who prioritizes abortion. It appears that young women are voting for Kamala Harris. And there may be some adult women, not necessarily younger women, who are also voting for Kamala Harris, while the latest numbers from young men seem to be tilting towards Donald Trump. Truly going to be a very fascinating election 97 days from today, 97 days and a few hours from today. And we will be monitoring it every step of the way as well. But I watch the poly markets and I watch the predicted market to see what's going on. All right, we need to figure out what the heck is going on in the Olympics. There's an Olympic update. And Donald Trump spoke with Laura Ingraham about the Olympics. We'll share that with you. Venezuela had an election over the weekend. Both sides claiming victory. But the current president of Venezuela, well, he controls the military. So that just might be the deciding factor in that election. We'll see what the heck is happening there. If we only had a president who was strong enough to stand up and make a statement about election integrity, well, that would require we had a strong president. That may take until January of next year. Just saying. All right, if you want to join the conversation, you're welcome to. 888-630-9625 is the number, 888-630-9625. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant. And I have to get to some of the Biden clips from yesterday when he flew down to Austin, Texas, and was at the LBJ Library presenting his dead-on-arrival plan to try and amend the Constitution to expand the Supreme Court, to limit the term of the Supreme Court, to impose his idea of ethics on the Supreme Court. Interesting. It's never going to happen. It's DOA. And Speaker Mike Johnson said so, but we'll get to that. There's some phone calls we have to get to as well. And I just noticed Kamala Harris has been the presumptive nominee for the Democrats for, 9 days now, and she has not done a single interview or a single press conference. That's kind of weird. The only thing she's done is teleprompter stuff. Oh, boy. It's almost as if they don't want anyone to ask her a question. That's interesting. Let's talk to Charlie in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Hello, Charlie.
Mike.
Welcome to the Chris Plant Show, sir. You're in one of my my favorite repositories of actual government art, and that is the Capitol in Harrisburg has a series of paintings called The Holy Experiment, which lays out the history of America. If you've never seen it, it's worth a visit.
Yes, it is. It's really amazing, and since they've done all the work on the Capitol building, it's quite outstanding. It's a place to visit.
Yeah, it's really kind of bizarre that the lady who did the paintings is named Violet Oakley, and she was not originally set up to do it, and the person they were going to pay to do it passed away, and suddenly here's this unknown who came in and did just spectacular job telling the beginning of America from William Penn's arrival here to all the way up through Lincoln. It's just gorgeous. It's really pretty. But what's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about weird earlier in your program, and my wife and I were watching the interview with Trump last night, and it kind of struck me that I've never seen a picture of Kamala in anything but a pantsuit. And I thought, that's kind of weird. And I just wanted to know, have you ever seen a picture of Kamala in anything but a pantsuit or, wearing anything but a pantsuit? And then the same thing is true with Hillary. I don't think I ever saw her in a picture without a pantsuit on. So I proceeded to ask my wife. She has a lot of political insight. And my wife said, I think maybe they're trying to portray themselves more in a man-like manner, that men wear suits, so therefore maybe that's why Kamala wears a suit, pantsuit. But I think it's kind of weird. I didn't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if it qualifies as weird. I just think I would venture a guess, and without having the ability to interview her, because as I said, she's done no interviews in the 9 days since she's been the candidate. She's probably trying to identify with the Hillary voters, the Hillary wing, the Clinton wing of the party. There are some reasons women choose pantsuits over skirts, and it might have to do with confidence in their own appearance, because we are a society that rewards telegenics more than it will reward necessarily brains. Interesting question, Charlie. Maybe she's got to deal with the Hillary Clinton pantsuit collection at QVC. It's Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
This is The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show on a Tuesday. Mike Opelka with you, sitting in for my vacationing friend. I mentioned this earlier. I didn't get to it. I know I'm trying to get to everything today. There's just so much. The Olympics still happening in Paris, and no, the triathlon is not going to happen again because there's too much E. coli in the Seine River. Some of it delivered by protesters, naturally. Some of it, they say, delivered by all the rain they've had. But really, this is going to be a mess, literally, and a dangerous one. You can't swim. You can't do the swimming leg of the triathlon because there is too much. Well, if you saw the movie Caddyshack, there are too many baby Ruths floating in the river. And it's not going to be healthy for the swimmers. Donald Trump was on with Laura Ingraham last night, part 2 on tonight, and she asked him about the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. And Mr. Trump had something to say. I know that surprises you.
I thought that the opening ceremony was a disgrace, actually. I thought it was a disgrace.
the mocking of the Last Supper.
I thought it was
Catholics and Christians across the globe are outraged.
I mean, they can do certain things. I thought it was terrible.
Can you say at the next Olympics, if you're present, you'll have enough influence on the organizers that we won't be, insulting Christians?
We won't be having a Last Supper as portrayed the way they portrayed it the other night. I just think, look, I'm for everybody. I'm very open-minded. You understand. You know me better than most people know me. I'm very open-minded. But I thought what they did was a disgrace.
Donald Trump speaking quite clearly on the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. I'm one who just says, let's root for our athletes. France is going to bear the brunt of the disapproval of what happened in those opening ceremonies, as they should. And they're trying to make all kinds of excuses, but more and more it seems like, yeah, they were going out to skewer Christians a little bit there. And why? For what purpose? You had so much great pageantry beforehand. They're the ones who are going to pay the price for it. We talked about the Senate and the FBI and Secret Service both testifying as to what the hell happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump almost lost his life. Earlier, Senator Tom Cotton was on Fox and Friends talking about this ahead of the hearing.
Well, I hope he's more transparent after what he saw last week. He has a good reason to be transparent beyond just wanting to tell the American people the full truth.
Yeah, I hope so, too. It seems like we've got a pretty open discussion happening. And one of the things that surprised me is that the acting director said, look, we had a counter-drone system there, but it wasn't working until an hour before the rally. Seriously, the 20-year-old incel shooter had a drone that was working 2 hours before the rally, but the federal government's drone wasn't working? Really kind of embarrassment. One more clip from Tom Cotton.
Likewise, the FBI director needs to answer for the status of their investigation, especially what they found about the motive of the shooter. I just think it's not credible to say that a 20-year-old who was willing to go and try to assassinate a former presidential candidate had zero digital trail, had never indicated anywhere online, on social media, anywhere, any kind of motive. The FBI needs to answer for the state of their investigation. And frankly, having, say, covered up the motive of the Nashville shooter last year, they don't have a lot of credibility if they're not completely forthcoming today.
See, I think this is why these hearings are so important, and that the Republicans do get to ask the questions, and Tom Cotton is right. We don't know the motive, although there is a story in the New York Post today, a very solid story in the New York Post today by Isabel Keene, saying that the gunman, whose name I'm trying to avoid saying, likely had a Gab account that he used to support President Biden. And that is according to the CEO from the social media site Gab. The gunman who tried to kill Donald Trump may have used an alt-right favored social media account, a platform called Gab, to spread messages in support of President Biden. I wonder if this will be in the FBI's investigation. It's in the New York Post today. If the Post can figure it out, you would hope that the FBI is interviewing the CEO, Andrew Torba. And maybe Torba has done the right thing and come forward. It's worth checking out. It certainly would be worth checking out. We need to get the answer, especially since Donald Trump has said he plans on continuing with outdoor rallies. He wants to try and be safe and secure. And if the Secret Service says we can't do outdoor rallies, he's going to encourage them to get more support. And I know the Butler, PA rally will be very secure. The one that's coming up, he wants to finish the speech, Mr. Trump does, and he wants to make sure they raise some more money for the victims, for the victims of the shooter. And that's going to happen. A couple more calls. I'm seeing the calls are lighting up here. I want to make sure we get to as many as possible before we wrap up today's show. John is in Indiana. John, welcome to the Chris Plante Show. What's on your mind?
Michael, something you and Chris might want to look at is I think they planned for this replacement of Biden from day one, from the beginning, just like the Butler shooter scoped the place out and didn't wait till the last minute. It was not just a spur-of-the-moment impulsive thing. They had an example of what happened in 2022. A few months before the election in New York, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul replaced Andrew Cuomo when it looked like Lee Zeldin was going to beat him. They ditched him from the ticket, and she ran white as drifted snow, acting like she didn't even know he existed. Cuomo, wasn't he Chris Cuomo's brother? Didn't his dad get a bridge named after him? And she went in there and didn't have to own any of the failures of the administration that went through COVID, with all the deaths and all the groping and all the other things that they had on Cuomo for a long time. But they waited till right before the election to do that so she could come in and have a clean slate. And they're doing this now with this amnesia for Kamala Harris.
That's a really interesting take on this. Although, John, I do think we have ample video footage of Joe Biden calling Kamala Harris a great partner. He said it yesterday at the LBJ Library when he was presenting his dead-on-arrival Supreme Court makeover. And he's talked about how she was involved with every decision. Kamala has claimed they had lunch virtually every week in the White House. So there is that. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, the disastrous governor of New York, couldn't make the same claim. Cuomo was pretty much a loner when it came to how he led his administration. And as a former and now escaped resident of New York, I witnessed all of this. And I do think we're right to kind of point out that the Democrats have pulled off the okie doke in the past by switching candidates. But what's most egregious here, John, and I don't know why there aren't more Democrats angry about this, is that 14 million people picked Joe Biden to be their nominee, and zero Democrat voters have voted for Kamala Harris to be the nominee, unless there are some vote tallies out there that we didn't know that people wrote her in. So
Michael, it goes all the way back to Khrushchev denouncing Stalin. They will put Biden back in the basement. He will become a non-person, and they will do a deem and pass thing like they did with Obamacare, where they stuffed it into a bill from the House where it had to originate into the sausage skin and put the contents of something else. They're going to do that with her, and he will be kept away from the microphones. He will not go anywhere. They'll keep him in Texas and put him down there in the LBJ Library until they get one of his own for him.
That's a very interesting take on it. Well, we already have a lame duck. Thank you, John. We already have a lame duck president, and he's now doing things that are more ceremonial than anything else. And people are saying, well, he just promoted the amendment to the Constitution to rein in the Supreme Court. Well, this is going nowhere. It is literally going nowhere, but Biden's allowed to go out there and start hooting and hollering about stuff. And he's allowed to try and act like he's serious. And the whole reason this is happening is not because it could get passed before he leaves office. It's because it's a talking point. The Democrats have wanted to talk about the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court is more conservative. Biden yesterday at the Johnson Library.
Bipartisan commission I convened analyzed various term limit structures. Based on their report, I believe the best structure is the 18-year term limit. That would help ensure the country would not have what it has now.
Now, 18-year term limit. Gee, the guy who's been in Washington, D.C. in various positions for 51 years, he wants an 18-year term limit. That certainly would have put the cramps on his time in the U.S. Senate, but never mind that. I want what I want.
An extreme court that's proud of an attack on the confirmation process that's been weaponized by those seeking to carry out an extreme agenda for decades to come. By the way, these guys mean it. These guys mean it.
Yeah, these guys mean it all right. They mean it when they say we're going to read the Constitution and interpret it. Oh, it's so interesting to me. Yeah, Joe was out there yesterday speechifying in Austin, Texas, but there is zero chance this is going to pass. And yesterday, when Biden arrived at the airport, it's kind of hard to hear. When he landed in Austin on the tarmac, the reporters were shouting at him, and someone said, "Hey, Speaker Johnson said that this bill would be dead on arrival." And Biden's reaction was, he's dead on arrival. What are we, like 8-year-olds yelling at each other? You stink. No, you stink. That's exactly what happened. See if you can hear it. It's kind of hard because there's all the plane noise, etc.
Johnson said it's dead on arrival. Yes, he is.
Dead on arrival.
Yeah, he's dead on arrival. Then he corrected himself later and said his thinking is dead on arrival. Somebody in the group said, "Sir, do you realize you said that he's dead on arrival? You can't say that, sir. You really can't say that." He doesn't realize it. He doesn't know where he is. I'm not the only one who thinks this. John is on the phone in Buffalo, New York, a great city, Buffalo, New York. Although the 9 months of snow bothers me sometimes, John. But welcome to the program.
That's a little exaggerated, Michael. We only get 8 months. Anyways, I was going to say about Biden, you probably heard the speech yesterday where at the end he went off prompter and started talking about his great days with the civil rights movement. I have never read a book about Biden or about the early days of the civil rights movement, but maybe you have, and maybe you know. You know, if you look up someone's name in the index of a book, you look up Biden, he might be listed with 4 or 5 other people. Or, that's a common thing if you ever look at indexes. Mm-hmm. Has he ever, or do you know if he's ever been mentioned in connection to the civil rights movement in the 60s and 70s? Because I have a feeling he hasn't. And if he had, he probably would have at least been one of the 5 or 6 people. In other words, they say, here's 5 senators that voted to, for a bill that helped black people in the early, whatever. Or here's someone who marched, Joseph Biden of Delaware, et cetera. You know what I mean? And
oh, yeah. We used to see the pictures of John Lewis marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You used to see the people that were linking arms with Martin Luther King and marching together. And and I live in Wilmington, Delaware, so you would think that the cover of the paper here would regularly feature Joe Biden, a young Joe Biden. And, we can't even find corn pop, John. So it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit like if you saw that movie Forrest Gump. They had a scene where Forrest Gump was in the background when Lyndon Johnson was signing a bill. I think he thinks he's Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? Or running 100 yards for a touchdown. If you saw
that's you're probably correct. There is a little gumpishness in the brain of Joseph Robinette Biden. Yeah.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is he actually did rise to be president. A mediocrity. I mean, he's a mediocrity. He's a hack Democrat politician. Everybody knows that. He's been around. We all know Obama sent a message when Biden was speaking, kill me now. You probably heard that, right?
Yes. Well,
it just goes on and on and on. And everybody's... Yesterday he mentioned 4 or 5 obscure people who no one will ever have heard of other than Delaware residents, when he was talking about...
Oh, when he was sworn in. Yeah, when he first ran for office. Yes.
Yeah, and he says that I had to wipe the whipped cream or
the shaving cream. It might have been whipped cream, knowing Joe. Yeah. He talked about people pounding on his door at a motel and demanding he run for the Senate. And
can you imagine the people that work for him backstage thinking, "Oh, Joe, could you please get through this without doing this?" And he never does. So, thanks for listening to me. Take care.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you. 8 months of snow. Yeah, and 4 months of bad sledding. That's what they have up there in Buffalo. It's a great town with great people. Mike Opelka here, in for Chris Plant. We're going to check and make sure we haven't missed anything in the Senate hearing on Capitol Hill and look ahead to what's happening. And I promised you an Olympic update, didn't I? I am remiss, but I will make good on that just around the corner. It's Opelka in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things had changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a baby cap.
There's only one Chris Plant, The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show, wrapping up another day of, we have more clips sitting in the bin because, as Chris likes to say, they just give us too much. There's entirely too much. We'll try and keep up with it. More stuff coming from the Senate hearing as we're learning about things that are very distressing, that weren't done to protect Donald Trump. And let's hope they are done going forward. They should be. We expect it. I'm also looking at our Olympic scoreboard. Yesterday was an exciting day for America as our men's gymnastics team got its first medal since 2008. It was a bronze medal, but that's a big deal for the men. And let's hope the women can pick it up. We're kind of anemic in the gold medal area. We only have 3. But we do have 20 medals overall. But it's gold that everybody brags about. Everybody remembers who won the gold medals. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Some of our great women tennis players, Coco Gauff, the #1 American, and Jessica Pegula got bounced out yesterday. So that's not good. But Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz, 2 great American men, still advance. And here in D.C., in the home of the Chris Plant Show, there is a major tournament where one competitor is named Opelka. Yeah, I have a nephew who's a pro tennis player. He's been out of the game for 2 years with injuries, but he's back, and he won last night. Well, he won this morning. His match was supposed to start last night around 7 o'clock, but rain delayed it until almost midnight. And he won it about 10 minutes after 2 o'clock this morning. So if you're a tennis fan, root for Riley Opelka. He's a good kid, a great kid, if you will. We will be keeping our eyes on, as I said, this Senate hearing and see if anything comes of this. I don't think there's any real major revelations. There are going to be some more discussions with the weird factor as it happens. Donald Trump will be addressing that issue as well as part 2 of the Laura Ingraham discussion. And I'm making a prediction that just like Reverend Jeremiah Wright was a problem for Barack Obama, and the media helped cover that up, Kamala Harris's radical pastor, Amos Brown, might be a problem for Kamala Harris. We will see if the mainstream media helps her out as well. Just remember you heard that name, Pastor Amos Brown. That might be Kamala Harris's Reverend Wright problem. We'll get into all of it tomorrow, God willing. Till next time, Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant, reminding you, testudo, my friends, testudo.